All right, let me talk about something that everybody keeps acting shocked about whenever my name pops up in a headline. This idea that I said something bold about Islam. You know how the world works now. If you clear your throat too loudly, someone online posts a video titled "Comedian Destroys Civilization with One Cough." But here's the real truth, the thing I actually think and the thing I wish people would slow down long enough to hear. I've traveled, I've talked to people, I've sat in cafes from New York to London to Detroit, and every time I actually meet Muslims and hear their stories, what hits me is how completely normal, human, relatable, and familiar everything about their daily lives is, because, newsflash, people are people. The problem is that the world loves a dramatic headline more than it loves a nuanced conversation. And nuance is like the guy at the party talking about taxes. Nobody wants to hear him until the rent goes up. Islam, like any major religion, is a massive, complex, centuries-long tapestry of culture, belief, interpretation, disagreement, agreement, philosophy, poetry, law, ethics, and everyday life. It's not some one-liner you can stick on a poster. The problem is people watch a 12-second clip of the worst thing happening somewhere, and suddenly they think they've unlocked the secret coding of 1.9 billion people. Meanwhile, I've met Muslims who argue about sports, complain about their bosses, negotiate with their kids about bedtime, and laugh at the same nonsense jokes everyone else does. Some of the funniest, warmest, sharpest people I've ever met came from Muslim communities, and you know what? They also roasted me harder than I've ever been roasted in my life. And that's when I realized something important. Humor crosses barriers faster than politics ever can. When you can joke with someone, when you can sit across from them and laugh until you're coughing like you just swallowed an entire desert, suddenly all the scary headlines lose their power. People love to talk about clash of civilizations. You know what I've seen clash more often? Styles of cooking. Somebody says, this biryani is the best. And suddenly you've got a full-scale diplomatic crisis happening at the dinner table. But that's the thing. I talk to Muslims and I hear the same universal themes. People trying to live with dignity, trying to raise families, trying to understand their place in the world, trying to be good, trying to make sense of faith and tradition in a modern society that changes so fast it gives all of us whiplash. And for every loudmouth online making sweeping statements, there are millions of Muslims who wake up, go to work, show kindness, pray, laugh, struggle, learn, mess up, try again, just like everybody else. So if the world is shocked by my so-called bold statement, let it be this. Maybe instead of reacting to headlines, we try listening to actual people. Maybe we treat individuals as individuals. Maybe we stop pretending we can summarize an entire global faith in one sentence. Maybe we admit that understanding each other takes more work than scrolling a feed. And maybe, just maybe, the real bold statement today is choosing respect, curiosity, and actual conversation over fear, stereotypes, and internet theatrics. If that shocks the world, then maybe the world needs a little more shock therapy of the good kind, starting with talking to each other like humans instead of categories. And look, since everyone insists on calling everything I say controversial, let's lean into it for a second. Because the real controversy isn't what people think it is. The real controversy is that we don't actually want to understand each other. We just want to win arguments. Humans love drama more than truth. If understanding each other was a sport, most of us wouldn't even make the bench. And that's part of why I keep bringing up Islam in these conversations. Not because I'm trying to shock anyone, but because the global conversation around Muslims is almost like a big game of telephone that started centuries ago and hasn't stopped. One group whispers something, the next group mishears it, the next one exaggerates it, and before you know it, the final message is so distorted it doesn't even resemble the original. I've seen comedians panic the second they hear the word Islam, like it's some trapdoor on stage that's about to open under them. But when I sit down with Muslim audiences or performers, the first thing I notice is how much they appreciate humor that's real, honest, grounded, and not dripping with cheap stereotypes. They don't want flattery, they don't want fear, they want authenticity. And honestly, that's refreshing, because in a world where everyone is terrified of saying the wrong thing, the only real way forward is open conversation mixed with a little humility, a little empathy, and a lot of listening. People assume Islam is this monolithic block, but it's actually like a sprawling city with thousands of neighborhoods, each with its own style, culture, history, customs, disagreements, debates, food, art, language, humor, even different ways of expressing faith. The idea that 1.9 billion people could be summarized under one personality trait is hilarious when you think about it. It's like saying all Americans think the same. Have you watched cable news? Americans can't even agree on pizza toppings. And yet somehow the world expects Muslims spread across dozens of countries, cultures, and centuries to all fit neatly into one box. That's not just inaccurate, it's lazy. But the truth is, laziness is easier than understanding. And that's why these so-called shocking statements go viral, because people react faster than they reflect. And while everyone is busy being outraged, they miss the larger point. The world doesn't need more shouting, it needs more depth. You want a bold statement? Here's one. Muslims around the world are not some exotic mystery waiting to be decoded. They're human beings living their lives with a complexity that deserves respect, not oversimplification. And the sooner we treat people like individuals instead of headlines, the sooner we stop letting fear guide our thinking. I've shared dinners in Muslim homes, listened to stories from Muslim immigrants, laughed with Muslim comedians backstage, and one thing always stands out: the generosity of spirit. That instinctive hospitality where they won't let you leave until you've eaten enough food to feed a small army. That's not politics, that's humanity. And that's exactly what gets lost when the world chooses noise over nuance. So if part one of my so-called shocking statement was asking people to open their eyes, then part two is asking them to open their minds. Because the world only gets better when we stop reacting to shadows and start focusing on real people, real stories, and real connections. And if that's controversial, then maybe controversy isn't such a bad thing after all, because sometimes it takes a little discomfort to push us toward understanding. And now that we're already knee-deep in honesty, let me go even further, because people keep asking me why I'm bothering with all this. Colin, why talk about Islam? Why get into this giant global topic when you could just tell jokes about traffic or New York City pigeons? And the answer is simple: because comedians spend their lives observing people, and you can't observe people without eventually noticing how badly we misunderstand each other. I'm not here pretending to be some scholar or diplomat. I'm just a guy who's seen enough human behavior to know when society is running on autopilot misconceptions. And the biggest misconception of all is that talking about Islam, or any religion for that matter, automatically means talking about conflict. No, sometimes it means talking about culture, community, tradition, wisdom, humor, and the thousands of little things that make up human identity. When I talk to Muslims, I hear about grandparents teaching old stories, kids learning prayers for the first time, families gathering around food that took hours to prepare, and people trying to make sense of modern life without losing their moral compass. It's the same struggle every culture faces, just with different ingredients. But the world loves to pretend differences are threats instead of flavors. And that's why I keep repeating the same message. You can't judge a billion people through a cracked lens. You want to understand Muslims? Don't start with the headlines, start with the human beings. Sit across from them, listen to them, joke with them. You'll learn more from one honest conversation than from 100 dramatic news segments. The funny thing is, whenever I actually talk to Muslim communities, I find that they're way more open to real discussion than most online commentators. They don't panic when I bring up hard questions. They engage, they explain, they challenge me back. And that's healthy. That's what adults do. The problem is, we live in a world where everyone wants instant conclusions without doing the homework. People treat religions like fast food menus. Just give me the summary, hold the complexity. But Islam isn't a slogan. It's centuries of philosophy, science, art, poetry, debate, spirituality, reasoning, and daily life intertwined. You can't shrink all that into a tweet. And yet people keep trying, because simplifying the world makes them feel safer. Well, here's my big revelation. The world doesn't get safer by simplifying it. It gets safer by understanding it. And understanding takes effort, curiosity, humility, and the willingness to admit you might be wrong sometimes. I've been wrong before. Believe me, audiences remind me all the time. But when I'm wrong, I listen, I learn, I adjust. And when I talk to Muslims, I see that same willingness. They want dialogue, not distance. They want conversation, not categorization. And maybe that's the real shocker. Behind all the noise, the majority of people, Muslims included, are far more reasonable, thoughtful, humorous, and open-hearted than the internet gives them credit for. So if the world says I'm making bold statements, fine. Let me make one more. The future of humanity depends on us realizing we're not living in isolated bubbles. We're sharing this planet, sharing neighborhoods, sharing fears, sharing hopes. And if we keep letting stereotypes do the talking for us, we're going to miss out on the richness of each other's stories. That's why I'm speaking up, not to provoke, not to preach, but to push the conversation toward a place where people actually listen. Because the day we start listening is the day the world becomes a little less divided and a lot more human.